small camera.
Yes, this one. Then that one's always focused on you when you... Hello and welcome to another live session here at the Graph HQ. This one, as you will know, is all about rainwater, and this is our Rainwater Research Live. This is a live session where we've got David, our resident expert on all things rainwater harvesting, in the hot seat to answer your questions and talk about topics all about rainwater harvesting. So in today's episode today, we'll talk about why rainwater harvesting can be so pivotal in helping to prevent a potential water crisis that the UK could face in the next decade. Then we'll be talking about a recent project that we've been working on here in Banbury, and then we'll be answering all your questions at the end. So make sure if you do have any questions to ask David, put them in the comment section straight away, and we'll cover all of them at the end. And if you do think of any whilst we're going along, make sure you put them in the comments, or whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and we'll get David to answer them so you don't leave this live session with any questions unanswered. So anyway, let's get into today's episode. So David, how have you been this week?
It's good. It's nice to be back in the hot seat this week talking about rainwater harvesting. Been a relatively productive week and lots of things managed, lots of project work going on in the background. So really good. Nice to take some time out and be here with everyone.
But the biggest talking point this week has been your baking skills.
Yes, I've been back in the kitchen. Yeah, obviously I'm my own worst critic when it comes to stuff baking, but everyone seems to enjoy the Millionaire Shortbread, which I brought in to celebrate all the things that we have got going in February here, which of course it was Valentine's Day yesterday. And I think we've got 6-7 birthdays in February as well. So just to share a little bit of the love, and it was well received by everyone. So pleased about that. So
as so you said you're the most critical person of yourself. What was wrong with your Millionaire Shortbread, would you say?
Oh, right, okay. If I have to say, the toffee was a little bit too far gone, so it was going towards hardball rather than softball. So, and the shortbread, the base was slightly overdone. But okay, improvements for next time. I can't make it perfect every time.
Well, so yes, that's been the topic of conversation. Everyone has been running to the kitchen to be making their way through the Millionaire Shortbread, and some people, me included, have had more than one, maybe 3 pieces if we're counting. But anyway, let's get into today's main topic, and that is what we're here to discuss and why rainwater harvesting could be so pivotal in order to help prevent a potential water crisis that the UK could face in the next 20 years. So if you've had your eye on the news recently, you will see it's covered by Sky News, The Guardian, The Telegraph, all sorts of papers and TV outlets talking about the potential water crisis. So David, whilst you got in the hot seat, why could rainwater harvesting be so pivotal in order to reduce the strain on our water resources?
Okay. So firstly, it's important to understand what rainwater harvesting is. And of course, it's different depending on where you are in the world. I mean, rainwater harvesting is purely the capture of rainwater, so it can be reused elsewhere. And certainly here in the UK, we would very much reuse rainwater for non-potable applications. But of course, worldwide, it's used for potable applications as well. So bringing it back to here in the UK, of course, we've got built up very much urban developments now, which have got basically full capacity in terms of their mains water usage. And the idea, of course, is that as we have ever-growing populations in these areas, we're not going to be able to keep up with how much demand there is on the mains water network. So the idea, of course, is to try and subsidize that demand with rainwater. And we know with rainwater, we can really look at substituting 50% of a general household's use through the use of non-potable applications. So whether this be for your toilets, for your washing machine, washing your clothes, irrigation, outside cleaning. So there is quite a big proportion that we can utilize with just the implementation of a simple rainwater harvesting system. Of course, that's the domestic side of things. If we then talk about agriculturally, we know that we can substitute a lot more. Certainly if you start talking about schools and farming. So there really is quite a big impact that rainwater harvesting could have in terms of helping us in the future on our mains water consumption.
So when you talk about it commercially, what sort of aspects could they substitute rainwater for instead of using mains water?
So it's, again, similar sort of things. Initially, we'd look at that first 50%, which is the which is generally the outside cleaning. But if you're talking about farming, for example, all of that rainwater could be used instead of using mains water to feed livestock, so cattle, sheep, whatever it may be. If you're talking about schools or potentially manufacturing processes which use water, so like the cotton industry, for example, or just washing of machinery in general, all of that water could be substituted with rainwater versus the use of mains. Now we can also dive into it a bit deeper. If we were to treat the water, with filtration through disinfection, we can then start substituting further mains water applications with the rainwater for the possible applications as well. So we can get 95, almost 100%. So there really is quite a lot of scope with rainwater. We're here in the UK. We know it rains pretty much every other day. It seems crazy not to use this such great resource to the best we can.
Because I mean, rainwater, especially if you look at domestic purposes, how much benefit the house can get is if it's water in the garden. We know plants prefer rainwater to mains water because of the obviously treatments and the chemicals in mains water to make it potable. It can then be harmful to potential plants. We know that obviously cleaning your car will obviously be a lot better with rainwater as it's soft, so you're not likely to leave watermarks on there. If you look at toilets, because obviously again, as rainwater is soft, unlike mains water, the buildup of limescale is a lot less than mains water. So then you'll be saving kind of money on the limescale removal and also clothes softeners as well if you're feeding with your washing machines.
Yes.
And then, I mean, it's the same again, like I said, for commercial, where you've got toilets there. You can feed like massive toilet blocks in schools, hotels, factories, offices, and then like cleaning purposes, if it's cleaning like vehicles for a large delivery company, or if it was manufacturing, it can be used in the cooling process. So the use of rainwater can be very, very pivotal in order to help prevent a water crisis. And we've seen a lot of people think that the use of rainwater harvesting and the technology is very new. However, the premise of it has been around for thousands of years, all the way back to the Romans. You could see with the large aqueducts around the city, collecting rainwater to be reused in the city for cleaning and possible uses as well during those times. And then we also see it all over the world that people even use water butts as a good example, just to collect water off maybe a greenhouse or a small shed in order to reuse in the garden. So water butt is a good way to kind of start to get going to understand rainwater harvesting.
Yeah, certainly is. It comes in many different forms, as you say. You can start off certainly in a more civilized area, say here in the UK, for example, by using a plastic container or canister or vessel just to collect that rainwater for reuse later. That's a relatively simple, cheap way to go about it. Of course, we can dive down into deeper in terms of these big underground storage tanks for the industrial applications as well. But if we were to go, of course, outside of the UK, if you go to, say, like South America, for example, go to the rainforest. I mean, you've probably got men and women living in the great rainforest, collecting rainwater on leaves and stuff. And of course, again, that's still rainwater harvesting at its very basic level, but it's still so important. And while we don't make more use of it, is, well, when we can, it's just really is an untapped thing that we should really look into a bit more.
And if you look at like kind of the facts of water, as we know, there's 7 billion people as a population of the world, and you see the great stats of 70% of the Earth's surface covered by water, but only 2% of that 70% is fresh.
Yes.
And 1.6% of that is caught up in glaciers and icebergs. So it's only 0.4% to really feed a population of 7 billion people. And we already know that's not enough to feed that population with millions of people without access to fresh water. So especially in developing worlds, it is an issue, and it's going to become a more pressing issue in kind of the kind of westernized world that is potentially more developed in a sense, because it's taken for granted until it becomes a commodity that becomes a lot more expensive in order to use.
Yes, I mean, even if we come back closer to our own doorstep, there's still well, if we just compare ourselves versus Scotland, for example, I mean, we very much pay for the use of our mains water here. Scotland don't. So, of course, it's probably something why Scotland don't really tap into rainwater harvesting so much so because there is no commercial benefit for them. However, we're really here to stress that we're talking about saving the world as a whole. I mean, it really is something that we have got the technology and the skills here to really implement and make a big impact. And of course, we very much here in the UK, we are very much one of the leading frontiers in terms of developments. All of these big technologies that you see in these very rich countries, it's kind of scary how much of it originated here, and of course they've then adopted it. So it's for us to lead the way, and hopefully that we can inspire some people to do that today.
Well, that's the interesting thing, because with our water buds, we started manufacturing them in the 1974, and then with our first underground rainwater harvesting system, we released that back in the 90s, and yet people still think that underground rainwater harvesting systems are completely new, whereas they've been around for decades, really.
Yes, very much. It's scary if you take a step back and have a look at the bigger picture. Really, how little we have really tapped into this, certainly on a larger scale. I mean, we're very, very lucky and privileged to be here, and we should really do the best we can to preserve the world, and for certainly the generations to come, for our children and our children's children. So we should really look into this a bit more.
Yes. Well, hopefully we haven't scared you quite in that conversation of, the potential pressing issue that the UK could currently face with water resources potentially running out in the next decade, as you see on the news. But the saving grace is that obviously we're not here to say that rainwater harvesting is the be-all, end-all savior of it, but it will certainly help with reducing the need of the fresh water usage and the Maine's water usage by substituting for kind of non-possible water usage, where obviously fresh Maine's water is required, instead substituting it for fresh rainwater, which is still an amazing quality to do the jobs that Maine's water doesn't need to do. But anyway, now it's time to move on to a recent project that we've had going on in Banbury. This is one that was very local to us, and we're going to get David to talk through it, as David worked quite closely on this project. I myself managed to get out and take some wonderful images and videos, as you're about to see. But let's take it away. Let's take a look at this one. We'll have it on the screen for you to see as well. So we've got the first pictures coming up, and this is the tank being lowered in. So this was, correct me if I'm wrong, David, but a 4,800 litre carrot garden comfort system.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yes. So this customer down in Banbury was retrofitting an old house to make it an eco-friendly, low carbon footprint, sustainable home for him and his wife, and he wanted to use rainwater harvesting as a part of that dream. And we've got some decent video as well of the system being installed, and it's a very lovely house now that it's been finished. So we've got some video as well, which you'll be able to see, and this is us offloading the tank.
So yeah, with this project, we very much were able to get involved with the customer quite early on. So we were able to advise him on the potential tank size that he would benefit in the most. So we looked at how much he could potentially capture, and of course we then weighed that up to how much he was going to be able to use back into the garden for his irrigation. So the tank size was looked after him. I believe, as Callum said, with the garden comfort system, he's primarily going to use it for watering his garden and outside cleaning. There are ways to upgrade the system and to make it more suitable to come back into the property. By all means, the water is, of course, a good enough quality at this moment in time for the toilets and washing machine anyway. But of course, you need to ensure that you have some form of water supply going to those applications. So if you were looking to upgrade to bring it into the property, you would need to come up with some sort of mains water backup supply to ensure the continued use of the system. So the system is purely working off rainwater at this moment in time. And of course, that's helping him in maintaining his garden. So it really is quite a nice project to work with. And we've been able to help him from start to finish with it. Hence the great videos and photos that we have of the project. I mean, I think the project went over like 2 months in total. So with that, not only with the supply, we went to sites, advised him on the potential locations of the tank, which went into his front lawn. And you'll see towards the end, we had some really good photos of how discreet the finishes, and it really blends in well to his finished overall garden. And yeah, we were able to advise him on the installation, and we finally went back there to commission it. So yeah, really pleased with the way that the project went. And yeah, it's certainly one of hopefully many more to come.
Certainly so. So yes, this was a nice clean project as well, and it's a 400-litre garden comfort system, so it's perfect for the reuse of back in the garden. And we've got some images just to show you kind of the finish. Obviously at the moment is basically just kind of a small building site, and then this is kind of the finished product of it. So now that the customer's finished this house, it's a really nice house local to us in Banbury. I think it was built obviously last century, in the 20th century, sorry, but obviously being retrofitted in order to it be more sustainable and low carbon footprint. And as you can see there with the lid of the system, it's very discreet and can be disguised into the lawn as it just flat to the surface. And then we've got some, like David mentioned before, we also commissioned the system. So this is not David, by the way. This is his twin brother, Michael, doing the commissioning. He's talking about the use of the float switch in order for the system to turn on and off when it comes to use back in the property if they wanted to use it. But certainly they're using it for irrigating the wonderful garden they have up front. And as you can see here, this is just a simple maintaining of the filter that you can just easily take out from the top of the lid and then just jet wash it down with a nice hose, just to remove any debris that might be on it to make sure the filter is working correctly and as it should be.
So yeah, really pleased with where the project went, and great customer to work with. And yeah, we've been able to do really good work with him. So really was worthwhile for both parties to get involved as much as we did.
Certainly so. It was a very good project, and we're glad that the customer is very happy with it. But now is the time to go into our Q&A section. So we have some questions lined up already, and we're going to go through them now to make sure that you don't leave here with any questions unanswered. So the first one is up. So with our Rainwater Harvesting systems, is there a control panel for the system?
Okay. This very much depends on the technical package, so the pump package we supply with the units. Most systems will run off an automatic pressure-sensitive pump, which will pump water on demand to the applications by the opening and closing of a valve. So a valve could be seen as something like a tap or a toilet system ball valve, for example. The pump will sense the opening of that valve and it'll pump water on demand until the valve closes and it'll shut off. With the more advanced systems, we can implement a control panel to basically give you a bit more in-depth detail in terms of what's going on in terms of the use of the rainwater versus how much mains water you're potentially saving. You can also detect the level of water in the ground tank, as well as opening and controlling solenoid valves for automatic cleaning of the filters. So at the standard systems, we'd just be looking at the submersible pump option. With more advanced systems, we can give you a lot more technology with the control system to really get an in-depth idea of how efficient the system is working.
Perfect. So hopefully that answers the question. And then secondly, we've got another question coming in. Is the pump on all the time?
Okay, so I may have just touched on that in that previous question. Now, with the control systems, whether this be a wall-mounted pump console or a submersible pump, we'd very much supply power to that 24 hours a day. But the actual operation of the pump, so it'll only turn on via a float sensor built into the pump when a valve is opened. So the pump is only running for whenever you have water running to an outlet. So power is only consumed, you could say, when the system is in operation. So it's a fully automatic process. Once you've got the system turned on, opening and closing a valve, the pump will pump on demand, and then of course it will then shut off once the system valve is closed and has become repressurized. So hopefully that answers the question for you.
Perfect. And then we've got a couple more coming in. So does the system owner need to maintain the filter, and if so, how often?
Okay, there's two types of filter we would normally offer or see within the market of rainwater harvesting. We would normally utilize a basket filter if the tank is discharging into the ground via a soakaway. Now, a basket filter will basically capture all the leaves and debris that's run in from the downpipes into this basket. So, of course, the build-up on that in that basket of that more solid debris is going to be quite fast. So we generally advise the homeowner to open up the manhole cover, lift that basket out, basically empty it into their compost bin. We sell this too. And yeah, basically, replace back into the tank ready for the system process to continue. Now, with a basket filter, we generally recommend anything up to 2 months. Also depends on where your house is located versus number of trees and stuff. So you might find build up on your particular property faster than potentially some other homeowner. If you're looking at one of the stainless steel self-cleaner filters, which you saw in the pictures with Michael and the servicing earlier, basically those filters, the way they're designed is that water will wash over the top of them and take leaves and debris out the outflow. Now, it's important with this type of filter that you connect it into some sort of storm network and not into a soakaway. If it was going to a soakaway, of course, those leaves and debris would block your soakaway every time. So this is just something to pay attention to. But with that self-cleaning filter, we generally see the build-up is not quite so long. So we generally recommend every 6 months or so. But again, once the customer gets an understanding of how long their system's in place, they will get an idea of how often it needs to be done. So.
But we do recommend like a visual check once a month of the filter, just to make
very
sure.
much so. I mean, if the manhole cover is relatively easy to lift off, certainly if you've got one of our pedestrian covers, that basically is opened up with a torque wrench and visual inspection into the top of the tank. Just check water levels and the quality, how clean the filter is, and if it does need to be washed down, of course, it can be easily reached via the handle on the top of the filter to be taken out and lifted and cleaned.
Perfect. So we've got another question coming in. So what can people use the harvested rainwater for, and can people drink it?
Okay. Hopefully we discussed this quite a bit at the beginning of the presentation. So the standard rainwater applications we would certainly look at here in the UK, if you're looking in accordance with the regulation, the British standard, would be the toilets, the washing machine, outside cleaning, and irrigation. Those are the primary ones. You can further treat the water, as we said, to disinfect it with carbon filters, UV and microfilters. Basically, this is taking out any impurities in the water, any microorganisms, and then you can use it for the other possible appliances, potentially like your dishwasher or your showers, for example. So, of course, here in the UK, we've got the technology to really improve on make the water quality better. Of course, we compare that to outside of the UK where they're not so advanced. In the more rural locations of the world, of course, rainwater is probably the most cleanest source of water they can get hold of. So in their case, they would probably just drink it where they can. But here we try to we've got the ability to look after ourselves, so we should.
Yeah. So as David covered, obviously it's on all non-potable water usage, but in any case, if there's any potential further treatment, like with the UV filters, then it can be used for drinking and potable. So next question coming in is where people can find out more about rainwater harvesting if they have more questions and want to do more research. Is this a question for me? I think it is. This is finally, I have a question for me. So you can visit our website, graphuk.co.uk, which says all on our blog page, all sorts of questions and articles about rainwater harvesting. And you can really start the research from there about what is rainwater harvesting, the different types of systems, so a direct or indirect. All your questions can be found in those articles. Or if you visit our YouTube channel, if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, you'll find all the videos about rainwater harvesting after that. And that's also got product demonstrations of how the systems work, so you get a better understanding of how they could work in your property, and also about rainwater harvesting in general. Like I said, about how we size the systems, what sort of system might be best for you in terms of a direct or indirect, or whether you just want to use it for garden irrigation only, and also what is rainwater harvesting and the benefits of it, so you can truly understand why rainwater harvesting is so important. That was my first ever question. And I think we're done. And on that bombshell, thank you for tuning in to today's live session. This has all been about rainwater harvesting, and we hope you've enjoyed. And thank you very much for watching. Next week, we'll have David again to talk all things wastewater treatment for another Wastewater Wisdom Live. So until next time, we'll see you again. Take care, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.